Greetings and welcome aboard Zach Back's Carousel of Theme Parks podcast. Now, most carousels just go round and round without getting anywhere, but on this one, we'll be talking theme parks. And now, here's your host, Zach Back. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Carousel of Theme Parks podcast. I'd like to welcome you to this one. This is a very special episode because it's something a little bit different. So in the previous episodes that we've done so far, they were called park history episodes. This one I'm going to be calling chit chat episodes. These are going to be when we kind of maybe look at a different segment of theme park history, like a smaller segment, not necessarily a theme park individually, but something just a little bit different. And then we kind of talk about it afterwards, maybe have a more casual conversation about the park or whatever we're talking about. In this episode, we're going to be talking about theme park souvenirs. Now, I am an avid collector of all theme park souvenirs, and we're going to actually go into today what that means, kind of what started the idea of collecting anything from a theme park, and some of those origins. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start off this episode a little bit with kind of a disclaimer. I did a lot of research for this episode, strangely, wildly, with the idea of looking up a lot of information about here are some of the old things that places used to sell back in the day. But in reality, there's not a lot of information that I was able to find about theme park souvenirs. So I did find quite a few articles from different writers across the internet about some of the origins of theme park souvenirs. So I do have some information here, and I can't wait to give it to you for that. But there's not a lot. So we'll chat more about kind of what the history that I found after I do the history portion. And then we'll proceed afterwards. I want to talk a bit about what I collect as a person. So we're going to get into my actual collection. And then over the course of the next week or so, I'm going to show on all of my social media channels some of my collections. So some of my highlights of my collections. And then I encourage you to share your collections because everyone collects something different. I just happen to collect quite a few different things. So much so that I really need to stop. But let's go ahead and get into this week's history of theme park souvenirs. When you visit the park of your dreams, you definitely come for the rides. But as you exit, you may exit through a gift shop. While in the shop, you buy something about the ride because you love the ride. You just bought a theme park souvenir. Amusement parks and theme parks have been selling items based on their park for decades. But where did the first plush or baseball cap get made or embroidered? Let's take a look at the history of theme park souvenirs. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a souvenir is something kept as a reminder, as of a place one has visited. From the earliest days of theme parks, amusement parks, and carnivals, some of the earliest souvenirs that were available were prizes from carnival games. An article on WorthPoint describes a carnival as a traveling amusement show. The word derives from a type of Roman Catholic festival involving masquerades, parades, music, and dancing, usually preceding Lent. Carnivals are sites of food, rides, and games of chance, where winners are rewarded with prizes. Some collectors desire these prizes or parts from the games themselves. However, there were few prizes given out in the early carnivals. As carnivals and amusement centers became more standardized after the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, carnivals started to award prizes to potential players. The prizes served as a reward for developing skill and an incentive for new players to participate. Some prizes included celluloid dolls and chalkware items during the Depression, toys and balls during the mid-century, and plush toys during the latter part of the 20th century into the 21st century. Winners of less challenging games and easier levels were awarded with smaller and cheaper prizes, and giant plush stuffed animals were the top prizes. A dishonest employee could manipulate some carnival games to favor the house to reduce the prize's amount and value. Prizes seem to have been one of the earliest forms of souvenirs at these places around the turn of the century. When Santa Claus Land, now Holiday World, opened in 1946, the park had a toy shop amongst its locations, which offered toys for sale in the park as an early souvenir to match the Christmas theme. As the years went on, not many options were available in the way of customized park merchandise until Disneyland opened in 1955, with options such as postcards, guidebooks, and pennants. The focus was on providing guests with a memento of their visit, rather than creating an extensive range of collectibles. In a way, Disney was the match that started the fire of merchandise and souvenirs from amusement parks and theme parks. Walt Disney began selling merchandise with his earliest shorts, and especially with the first Mickey Mouse item. Mickey Mouse's image first appeared on a children's slate board in 1923. Children could take the new character to school with them, and they loved it. Hundreds were sold, thus beginning one of the most successful merchandising businesses in history. The revenue from these earliest merchandise options from Disney is what would eventually build Disneyland. When you think about theme park souvenirs, consider what buying means to a theme park. You purchase an item, you take it home, you wear it out in public if it's a wearable. Other people see the item and wonder where you got it from. They visit the park where you bought it and spend money there. It's a cyclical process that means as a consumer and guest of the park, you are also advertising for the park as part of your fandom. Ever since the early days of Disneyland, and even before, the concept of consumerism as it took off in the early 1900s created the craze of merchandise. Consider Knott's Berry Farm. When the original fruit stand was built in 1923, the family simply sold produce. But as the produce stand grew into a restaurant, it became so much more. In 1939, in an attempt to give the people waiting outside the restaurant something to do, Walter and Cordelia Knott's daughter, Virginia, set up a card table with small gift items for sale. As the restaurant grew, so did Virginia's enterprise, receiving her very own gift shop, which still stands today. After this, Walter Knott built entertainment ventures outside the restaurant to keep those waiting to dine entertained, which eventually became the theme park we see today as Knott's Berry Farm. From the first produce stand to the boysenberry pie and beyond, that park was built by merchandise and souvenirs. As the years went on, more and more parks around the world began to spring up, and with them their own merchandise locations. Theme parks and amusement parks today generally offer an array of branded and co-branded items, ranging from a variety of categories such as plush, wearables, pins, collectibles, media, kitchen, and ephemera. These items being sold actually have changed how the parks make money. According to the Los Angeles Times today, merchandise sales typically generate about 20% of theme park revenue, but that percentage spikes when a park offers new souvenirs, clothes, and hats that are tied to the opening of a new attraction or holiday celebration, according to theme park industry experts. Gone are the days when just the Midway Games, prize winnings, and individual attraction ticket sales made up the profitability of parks. As theme parks began to operate as extensions of media conglomerates such as Disney, Universal, Paramount, and more, they began to infuse their pop culture power into the theme park merchandise. Plush characters from your favorite movies or cartoons began appearing at prize booths. You could purchase your very own Mickey Mouse Club ear hats, and in more recent years, actually purchase near-movie replica wands, robes, and pieces from the Harry Potter films. When Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida opened its Wizarding World of Harry Potter attraction, park attendance jumps 36%, and merchandise revenue doubled from the previous year to $48.7 million for the 3 months that ended in September, according to a report filed by Universal City Development Partners, which owns and operates the theme park. As theme parks become ever the more themed, souvenirs have become their own adventure. With special wearable technology, cosplay costumes, on top of standard park-themed merchandise and offerings, merchandising in theme parks has only continued to grow into an attraction of its own, with some people even visiting theme parks simply to be able to purchase a souvenir. As we look at the future of theme park souvenirs, we should look back at the origins of it all, right back to that Midway Games plush. All right, so I hope you enjoyed kind of learning a little bit about theme park merchandise history. Now, as you see, that was only about 10 minutes of information. I was struggling to even find that much, which is interesting because most industries have quite a bit of information about this kind of topic. And it's interesting to see kind of how people really didn't buy anything back in the day in those early amusement parks. They were just midway games, rides, maybe restaurants, but as it goes for merchandise, there was kind of nada. I mean, it's hard to find many things from those early days of theme parks available for sale, even today. It's really hard to find that. And I mean, I guess that's why. Because if you think about it, the history of consumerism changed a lot because people back in the early 1900s really didn't buy a lot. Like, they bought only necessities. Like, extra stuff really didn't come around until later in time. So it does kind of make sense that theme parks, as they become more and more popular, have started to develop their own lines of merchandise because the world has started making fandom-based merchandise and fandom-based products that people buy even when they're not in a theme park. So for theme parks to kind of tag onto that and offer their own information and their own stuff is kind of fascinating to kind of see the history. And when you go into theme parks, no matter where, you kind of see a certain array of things. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and briefly go over these. Briefly, I say briefly, I mean quite a while. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about some of these categories, as I'd like to say, of souvenirs, because I know I like to go to theme parks and buy stuff. I love when new stuff comes out. I love to buy into it. Now, do I have the money to be doing that? No, I don't. I'm not that well off to be looking for buying literally everything that comes out, but I'm so grateful to be able to buy a lot of it, usually at a discount. So tee for me. But regardless of that, let's kind of look at the categories of souvenirs, because I really think that the categories have only expanded through the years, but they've kind of included almost everything here for a long time, at least as long as I've been going to theme parks, and at least as long as I know many of our theme parks that we've explored so far have existed. A lot of these items have existed their entire lives. So Kings Island, some of this stuff was offered on day one in Kings Island. So let's take a look. So the first category, I think, is a really wide category. It's called wearables. I think this is probably the easiest thing that has really come more recently. And wearables, I can group up to say, includes bags like backpacks and fanny packs and other kinds of bag type things. So we're looking like satchels and totes. If you can think of it as a bag, yes, that's a bag. That's a wearable. And theme parks have been making a lot of different types of bags more recently, but we'll get into that in a minute. And then they also have lanyards, which lanyards kind of go along with something else we'll bring up. Actually, it's the next category. But lanyards are also a wearable that theme parks have been using for many years as a easy one to sell. Then we have clothing. So clothing, this will be anything you can wear. So mostly t-shirts is probably what we're talking about here. But in the more recent years, we have seen theme parks begin to offer hoodies, sweaters, spirit jerseys, fashion clothing. Like, there's offerings for every taste because they're trying to get anyone to wear anything. As long as it's available, they want you to wear it. So clothing is very important. And then headwear. Headwear is a huge category because hats are some of the biggest things in theme parks, because people come in shirts and clothing and all of this. They already enter the park wearing that stuff, but they may not walk in wearing a hat. So a hat is kind of almost a necessity while also being a kind of a special item that they may purchase. And it's definitely a wearable souvenir, because they'll buy a hat with your theme park name on it. I will buy a hat with your theme park name on it, like, easy. You don't have to sell me on that. I'll do it. Like, don't threaten me. but hats are important. So you've got headbands. This is more leaning towards Disney because Disney uses the mini ear headbands as a headwear option, and they are very popular there. I don't really see a lot of headbands being super popular around in other theme parks, but Universal has started kind of leaning into the headband, and they have all these really customizable headbands right now. That's also a Disney thing they started. It's just a trend at the moment, but I think up to this point, I mean, headbands haven't been super popular other than like mini ear headbands. Caps, so that's going to be like baseball hats. Any kind of cap, I mean, mesh cap, a trucker cap, those kind of things. Those are super popular in theme parks. I mean, you can go to almost any theme park in the world and find a baseball cap or something that's embroidered with a theme park or a ride name or a roller coaster name or something in the park. Like, you'll find them everywhere. And then you have just hats. Now, I'm classifying hats as we're talking like sun hats and, bucket hats and top hats. I mean, you don't find a lot of themed, customized top hats in theme parks, but you never know. But we're also talking like any kind of hat that's just like a general hat that doesn't fall under the baseball cap category or the headband category. The next category is pins. Now, pins have become fairly popular since the early 2000s. This wasn't something that really existed much in the 90s, 80s, 70s, anything below the early 2000s. Disney kind of jump-started this. Like, I'm not saying that pins, like lapel pins, did not exist before the 2000s, because they did. They very much existed long before then. But as a category of theme park souvenir, Disney kind of started that game. I'm sure, I know I own a couple pins that are from the early 90s. Disney did attempt a lot of pins, like lapel pins, back in the day, and they had been popular for years. You can see Walt Disney wearing certain types of little small lapel pins for years, but they weren't popular as a kind of a clothing enhancement until Disney made it that way. That's what's interesting about a lot of Disney souvenirs is they created that phase. They created the craze in it. They created the fandom, and so they control it, which is interesting because pins is a super, super, super huge thing now. And a lot of theme parks adopted pin trading after Disney adopted pin trading. I remember visiting Dollywood in the early 2000s, probably shortly after Disney created pin trading. I don't remember what year this happened, but Dollywood used to have a pin store in the front of the park that was just pins. Like, it was literally walls of pins, and they all had different attractions, different names, different things that you could put on a pin trading lanyard you could buy. I have a couple of the pins from that era of Dollywood, and it's interesting to kind of look at those and go, wow, they're very different from the modern era looking pins. They're very more, very much same color. They're just metal looking. They don't have all of the colors that modern pins have. So it's kind of fascinating to see how that looks today. But pins are super huge at Disney. Disney has like 3 subcategories of pins: limited edition, open edition, limited release, limited edition. So I completely screwed that up, but they usually have 3 different categories there. And the value of each of these items depends on what edition it is. So if it's limited, it's more be a higher value. If it's limited release, that means that they are giving it out for a specific period of time or a specific event, and then it's they stop selling it afterwards. But there's no limit on the edition size, so they can keep making more as the event goes on. There's no set number of pins that they're supposed to sell. That's the same in a lot of different merchandise in theme parks. You don't necessarily see those type of things outside of the theme park world, and not even really outside of Disney. I mean, I've seen some limited edition items, which we will get to, like collectibles, in other theme parks, but as it goes for limited release, open edition, all of that, those verbiage is really only Disney. And sometimes Universal, but the big players in the theme park world are where those words come into play. The next category I'd like to say is collectibles. Now, collectibles, I made it this giant category because collectibles kind of includes for me wall art, which can be anything you hang on the wall. Models, so these are going to be things that like you place on a table. Those are going to be much more various things, like models, like coaster models, and those little nano coaster models, or those nano coaster, ride cars, and those little wooden vehicles that you can buy right now in a lot of theme parks. I know I've seen some different ones at Dollywood. They have like the Dollywood Express, not Hogwarts Express. They have like the Dollywood Express. They have a few coaster themes, a few coaster trains built out of wood that you can buy the sets for. Those are collectible models for me. Then you have figurines. Now, figurines for me has changed a lot through the years, and honestly, theme parks have seen them change a lot through the years. If you remember the early 2000s, the early 2010s even, I would say it was around 2010-ish, is when Disney had figurines called Vinylmation figures. These are your famous figurines that you would buy, and they were all themed to different things around Disney property. Of course, figures have also existed long before that. If you look back at some of the early merchandise at Disney, they had little figures of the Fab Five characters. So they're actually selling some of them again as kind of like a classic recall to some of the old days. But I have some from my grandparents who are like little plastic Donald Duck figures and like different things like that where they could move their arms. So those were very popular back in the 70s and 80s, and they've kind of resurged with lots more different types of figurines today. Of course, something that happened kind of the early 2020s was pop figures, Funko Pop figures. Now, this is a branded product where kind of every theme park that I know of really jumped on a train. They jumped on the fandom bus with Funko Pop figures, creating specialized figurines and model items that guests could buy and fans could buy. And then all of the different fandoms out there also jumped onto this trend. So much so that now I have probably over 100 Funko Pop figures and absolutely nowhere in my entire world to be able to put them or do anything with them. Like, I'm not a museum. Where am I going to put these items? We'll get into those. Regardless, figurines is kind of a huge category that includes a lot of things even today that you can customize. Now, there was one recently that actually just closed. It was the Avatar Pandora Conservation Initiative. Design a figurine kind of station in the Pandora store. And that was interesting because it was like a spot where you could actually customize a figurine. So that's another figurine collectible. That's actually kind of both. It's a collectible figurine because it's unique to you and unique to whatever you decided to design it with. Then you have kind of an open-ended, limited edition unique items. These are going to be those items that I wouldn't consider wall art or models or figurines, but are very much collectible. So, for example, I have a collectible Knoebel's Grand Carousel brass ring. Would I call that a wall art? No. Would I call it a model? No. Would I call it a figurine? No. It's kind of a unique item that it's limited edition. Like, you can't just buy these forever. They're only going to sell so many of them, and they're special edition type things. Commemorative, if you would. Commemorative coins are a good kind of connection here to limited edition unique items, because those items, you're never going to make exactly same type of pressed penny or collectible coin. None is ever the same. So those are those unique items that theme parks like to do. Like I remember hearing about where a piece of a coaster floor at Busch Gardens. That was in our last episode, where Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay, took the coaster floor to SheiKra, and they converted it into these little commemorative plexiglass resin things where they could sell them. I think they were resin, where they were kind of inside. And so you would have a piece of the floor. Like, that kind of thing is commemorative to me. That's a limited edition unique item. Then you have the next category, which I would say is media. So media includes books, movies, music, such as CDs and vinyls. This is a huge category because it depends on the park. Disney is really good at doing all of these things. Special things about their their theme parks, special books about their theme parks, special music from their theme parks. They're very good at releasing a lot of that information, a lot of that kind of data. Other theme parks are also pretty good at that. Like Kings Island has a lot of really great books available to help on the history. So make sure you go check out those books in that episode. In 1.2, make sure to check that one out. But there's lots of great options that theme parks use as merchandise in the parks. The next one I like to categorize as ephemera. Now, ephemera is just a word for items that you might use once or might hold for once and then maybe throw away later. And that would include for me like paper maps, paper schedules, brochures that you would visit a theme park with, and then maybe postcards. Now, postcards are kind of a double meaning. They are kind of an accessory or an item that people collect quite often. And I mean, as I mentioned in the episode or earlier in the history, postcards and like pennant flags and things like that, they were some of the earliest forms of kind of themed park souvenirs. So postcards have been around a long time, and they will continue to stick around somewhere because I know I like to collect them as well. I put them in a little photo album so that I can look back on where I've been with some of my really cheap postcards, because the postcards really do a great job of keeping that time period. I have some really old Dollywood postcards, which are so interesting to look at because the pictures that they have posted on those postcards are very different today of where in the parks they exist. Next, I would say is accessories is the category. This would be more of those general items that you would see in a park, like magnets, keychains, those type of items, those customized keychains you can buy where your name's on it. Those type of things. Those, I think, are super huge and important pieces of a theme park kind of experience. A lot of people buy those constantly, so that's why they're a super stable category of theme park merchandise and souvenirs out in the world. The next thing I would say is kitchenware. Kitchenware is one, I actually come up with this one right before I wrote the episode because I was like, oh no, you know, there was something else that you find a lot in theme parks. And I was like, oh yeah, mugs. But what would we classify that? I said kitchenware because they're also doing a lot of cups here lately and a lot of other type of kitchenware items. So cups, mugs are a huge thing. Everyone goes to a theme park and buys a coffee mug. There are so many themed coffee mugs. Customized coffee mugs. Go to Legoland, they've got every different one of coffee mug with your name on it, and you pick your name on there. So like, it's really cool how theme parks have even taken to the things that you use on a daily basis. Like, you might use a coffee mug every morning, so why not use your theme park coffee mug every morning? See, they're trying to get into your life. The next and final category I would like to talk about today is plush. Now, plush, as we talked about, is probably one of the earliest forms of theme park merchandise because, as we talked about, they were like your standard theme park. This is where you went to your amusement park, to your carnival games, and you won something as a prize. You got a plush thing. Now, in the early days, there were very, very basic plush items. I can share some photos of that maybe later this week of some of those early plush from like early carnival games. They were kind of scary actually because they were just little soft things made of fabric with some stuffing inside. They were very basic. This was before people really were buying things shaped like other things, so it was interesting. But they did their very best with what technology was around at that time. I'm not saying that some great plush things existed back then. I'm sure I could look up and find something almost immediately that was really amazing. But a lot of the examples that I found in my research were just very, very basic things that would interest people into playing games. That was the goal. Just buy that little, buy your little teddy bear with your heart. Like, it was very, very basic stuff, which kind of came back around because you have miniature size all the way to jumbo. So There's really, really tiny plush things, and then there's really, really huge plush things. And Mickey and Minnie Mouse were made as a plush characters, and they were very popular around the early days, not 20s, the early days of Disney. You can look back and find all kinds of really retro Disney Mickey and Minnie Mouse plush figures, plush animals type thing. And you can find those. They're kind of scary. I won't lie to you. They are kind of scary. But I have some of the modern ones. So plush is a huge category, I think, and still a really big driving force in most theme parks, because you see people and kids everywhere carrying around that plush whatever from something that they did in their theme park day. So those are the categories that I like to talk about today. Those are the ones I think that's best kind of cover all of the souvenirs that are available in a theme park. So let's talk a little bit now about what I own. So, you know how I've listed all these categories? These are all things I own. I own everything in this list. Like, I own mugs, I own cups, I own kitchenware, I own magnets. Every single thing here I have a collection with, which is crazy. So, I mean, I made this list by looking around my bedroom and finding things that were in plain sight. So, and I realized when I was doing a walk through my mind tour of the World of Disney store at Disney Springs, I was thinking about each like zone of the store and going, yep, I own something from that zone. I own something from that zone. Yeah. Okay, there. And I was like, oh, I guess I do own something from every different category. And I collect things from every different category. Now, I mentioned in the very first area of the kind of category section was that I buy a lot of wearables. You buy a lot of wearables. You know, when you buy that t-shirt about your favorite roller coaster, that's a wearable. When you buy your hat, I have a hat collection from that ranges from hats from I have a Disney MGM Studios hat I recently got. It's an actual original hat from the 1990s. I'm not sure if it was from opening year or it was from later, but somewhere in the 1990s. Maybe 1989. I don't know. I could look back. I mean, who knows? It does look like something that you would wear in 1990. So it's really fun. I also have some hats that are custom from around the world. I have a hat from Fantalusion that actually lights up. It has, which is a parade in Tokyo Disney. It was so. I know I jumped really ahead on that one, but I have a hat from Fantalusion. Did I ever see this show, the parade? No, I did not. But I had a professor in college who worked on that parade, and so it was fascinating to see the hat when I found it in a thrift store. And I was like, oh, this is fun, and it actually still works. I put some batteries in it, and the fiber optics in the hat still operate. So that's really cool. I have some other hats from like Europa-Park. I have hats from Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm. Like, I've got options when it comes to hats. I could wear a different hat every single day and you would still never see every hat I own. Because hats also includes those Mickey ear hats. And since I've worked at Disney for a while and I have been around Disney parks for a while, yeah, I own a lot of Mickey ear hats, so oops, quite a bit. Actually, I own probably about 40 Mickey ear hats, maybe less than that. I don't know if that's probably too high of a number, but yeah, I own a lot of those. I own a lot of t-shirts. I own a lot of sweatshirts, jackets with Disney, Universal, different theme parks all over them, bought from Dollywood. Like, I have options when it comes to clothing. And so I love to really show my fandom out there. And another way I like to show my fandom is with those bags, as I mentioned earlier. One of those major companies has been really popular in more recent years, and that was it kind of follows the era of Funko Pops, and that is the Loungefly bag. Now, Loungefly bags kind of became popular maybe like 5 years ago. And they were fairly rare to find, but because they were especially fandom based. And then now Disney parks, as well as other theme parks around the world, have started leaning into the Loungefly bag. And so these mini backpacks is what they're quoted as. they're not that many. They're just a small version of a backpack. They have become a staple in most people's wardrobe. Like, if you live around theme parks or you go to theme parks quite often, you probably have a Loungefly bag somewhere. I know for a while they were seen as more of a fashion accessory. Nowadays, they're just so common. It's actually more interesting to see ones that you don't find all the time. I know I personally have probably 12 to 20, I don't know how many Loungefly bags. So I've collected quite a few different ones from around the world. Most of them from Disney, a few from Universal, I got a couple from Dollywood. So there's options out there. And I'm looking around just trying to see while I'm talking here about some of these things that I have. But also a more recent kind of bag theme that has been happening at Disney parks has been the Lug bag. Lug is a smaller brand bag. I have a couple of those. I don't have a lot of those yet, but I do have a few of them. They're very much smaller than the Loungefly bags. They're still just as themed and just as nice as Loungefly. Of course, there's other bags out there like a Harvey's bags, which are made kind of out of a seatbelt type material. So those are interesting as well. But beyond the wearables, let's see what else I have. I have probably close to 1,000 pins. I would estimate, I don't know, I've never counted them all. I've been collecting pins since my first Disney trip in 2005. And then I also collected a few pins from Dollywood, as I mentioned, Dollywood pin trading earlier. But I have a few of those pins as well, and a few of the newer pins as well as the older pins. But I have a lot of pins from Disney. That's why I knew quite a bit about pin trading with those limited edition versus limited release versus open edition versus cast member versus Mickey's of Glendale versus, I could go on and on and on. There's so many different types of pins, and Disney really plays into it. They have been coming out with new pins nearly every year, every season, every new attraction opening, every major celebration or anniversary of anything. Disney creates new pins and new items based around pins. So there's been wearables that are based on pins. Lanyards are based on pins. Like, pins is a huge business for Disney, and it's actually a huge business for a lot of theme parks. Universal has quite a lot of pins now too. Other theme parks, maybe not so much. I mean, I found quite a few pins at Knott's Berry Farm for their 100th anniversary. And I found a few pins when I went to Europa-Park. Disneyland Paris also does a pretty good pin trading program and does a lot of really nice pins that you can purchase. As I said, Europa-Park has a few. Efteling has a few as well, because I went there last April as well. But pins are very popular at a lot of theme parks. I'm sure you could go to almost any theme park and find some pin. There's a few I've been to that don't sell pins at all. Carowinds. Listen, I have some opinions on Carowinds. I love the park, but its merchandise is lacking. And in this episode, we're talking about souvenirs. I could not find any good souvenirs at Carowinds, and I was like, I need that. Darn it. Anyway, collectibles. I have a lot of collectibles too. I have a lot of random things that I've bought over the years, and a lot of them are Disney-based collectibles, such as wall art. I have posters and, prints, art of Disney art. That's something they do. But I also have a lot of stuff from other theme parks. I have models of the Eiffel Tower from Kings Island and Kings Dominion. I also have like a wooden model of the Eiffel Tower from Kings Island, which is really fun. I could have bought the wood. I could have purchased, let me say that correctly. I could have purchased the one from Kings Dominion, but I was like, I have the Kings Island one. It's nice. And the one from Kings Island actually included a piece of paint from the Eiffel Tower in a special protective case, which was so cool. And it's a commemorative limited edition of so many paint swatch. So it's quite literally the color they paint the Eiffel Tower, which they named it Eiffel Tower Green. So it's fun. But I have also a lot of other kind of collectibles as well. Figurines. As I said, I have a lot of Funko Pop figures. You'll see some of those in some of our posts this week on the Instagram and on my Facebook page and on my X account. So keep an eye out on all of those things. I will post some information about those. And then I have a lot of limited edition unique items as well. A few unique things like opening teams of things and places. I've received lots of really fun commemorative items that you can't get any other way. Or when you go to opening day of a theme park, or maybe you go to the commemorative anniversary of Magic Kingdom, and they're selling a special item that you can buy that's not your typical item, but it's only available that day. Those type of things I would consider there. I also have a large book collection for theme parks. I'll show some of those. I have a lot of information about carousels because if you don't realize, this is called the Carousel of Theme Parks podcast for a reason. It's because I have a fascination with carousels. If you've found out the TikTok account, I think it's Carousels something, Carousel Hall of Fame, Carousel Fan. I'm not sure. I will look it up and put it in the chat. But she is a really great resource for carousels if you want to learn more about carousel history and kind of fan out with me on that topic because I love that history of carousels. So I have a lot of carousel books. I have a lot of books on Disney parks. I have a lot of books on Disney people. So I have Imagineering. I have lots of books on theming at Disney. I have costuming at Disney. So I have a lot of Disney books because Disney makes a lot of books about their parks and their resorts and kind of their business in general. I also have quite a few books about Kings Island, about other theme parks, amusement parks. Holiday World has a really great book that I have. I also have a really great book on Europa-Park's 50th anniversary, which we'll talk about that in a minute. And also quite a few other books that are kind of collections about things to do with theme parks. So I really love collecting theme park books. And movies are also important. Disney makes a lot of movies specific for Disney theme parks. If you think about those Imagineering documentary type things that they used to produce, those are very much Disney theme park souvenirs in a way. They used to sell them and you could buy them on DVD in the park. They don't really do that anymore since everything's online. It's part of your streaming service subscriptions, part of YouTube, part of Disney Plus, all of those things. So you can still get those movies and kind of shows that have to do with Disney theme parks. And then finally, music. I love theme park music. You can find, I have a lot of really great theme park playlists on my Apple Music account. So if you want to look for my name, Zach Back, on Apple Music, you can find some of my playlists, which are fun to listen to. I will link a couple of them also in the show notes, just so that you can see them under my account and find some of my playlists. I have some other fun playlists too that have nothing to do with theme parks, so good luck with those as well. But I have a lot of fun playlists on Apple Music that are based on theme parks, different parks. I've got SeaWorld music, I've got Disney music, I've got Universal music. I've got options there. So if you're looking for variety of theme park playlists, I've got you covered. But music is important to me. I also have a lot of the theme park CDs out there in the world. One of my favorite things is actually kind of a theme park CD book, and it is a 1964 New York World's Fair book album. So it has, I believe, 6 CDs in there from different attractions that Walt Disney assisted with at the World's Fair. So it's the music and the background tracks from those attractions. So that's one of my favorite things. I also have the original Main Street Electrical Parade on vinyl. It's a 45. I actually happened upon that one on eBay or Mercari or something, and I bought it for $5. It was nothing, but it means a lot to me. I also have the entire original vinyl album for the Country Bear Jamboree, the original one. And that one's fascinating because it comes with a full color book that goes with the attraction and tells you the story and the history of each of the little characters in Country Bear. So that's fun to read too. So I've got lots of CDs and vinyls with theme park music on them. Postcards and maps. Now, I collect maps. I've worked in these theme parks, and I've been to these theme parks, and I've visited a lot of other theme parks around the world. And one thing I love to collect is a brochure or a map. If I see a free map laying around, I'm going to put it in my bag because I'm going to keep it. I'm going to put it in a little binder I have, and I'm going to keep it and look at it later because these are little snapshots in time that you can buy that really truly show you kind of a theme park from a different perspective. So I love park maps and things that you typically are not supposed to really collect, and they don't cost anything. They're free. Like most of these the maps and stuff like that are free. Postcards. Now these aren't free, but they're still considered something you would typically throw away because it may be something you actually mail to someone else. That's the whole point of a postcard after all, is to buy a postcard stamp and put on it and then mail it to people that you know saying, hey, look where I'm at. We don't do that anymore most of the time, but I buy them for collectible purposes. I actually, as I said earlier, I have little photo albums that I've essentially taken out my photos and put postcards in its place. Now, keep in mind this does tend to fill up your photo albums rather fast because postcards are thicker than photos, but there's still a really great way to protect those postcards and keep them safe for the future so that you can kind of have them and show them off to other people later on down the way. Now, accessories. I do have magnets on my fridge. My fridges are covered in magnets and other things like that, but you can buy those everywhere. And then Disney annual pass holders get them free a lot. Universal annual pass holders also get them free a lot. So it's easy to collect magnets, but you can also buy magnets. You can buy a lot of fun magnets. Magnets are probably one of the biggest souvenirs that are available almost anywhere. Any tourism location you can find a magnet. Same thing as a postcard. Keychains are also very popular at these places. I have a few keychains, not a lot. Kitchenware, cups, mugs, kitchenware. Here lately, cups have become a really big business in theme parks because everyone wants themed drinkware. All of a sudden, themed drinkware has become a major selling thing in a theme park, in a location, because it's an easy item to sell. People will buy it. If you look back at the history of Starbucks mugs in theme parks, Starbucks cups in theme parks. Remember when Disney had those sparkly, faceted Starbucks cups everywhere? Yeah, that was popular for a while. Now it's a Stanley-shaped cup. So those giant 40-ounce mugs. Yeah, I have one sitting on my table right now. It's not a Disney one, but it's still a themed one. People are buying them everywhere. Those things are popular right now. Those are hot cake commodities, and they're popular. So, buy into it, I guess, if you want. Mugs, though, super popular item in most stores around any theme park to have a themed mug. They're the easiest gift that you can take home to your loved ones. I realized I neglected to talk in the accessories portion about snow globes. Snow globes are kind of a weird one to me. I didn't mention it. I have a couple snow globes, but not a lot because snow globes are pretty hard to get. Used to be these were things were huge parts of visiting a theme park. A snow globe, buying a snow globe. Not anymore. It's because of travel restrictions, I think. People don't buy them because they can't travel with them very easily. So they typically just don't buy them anymore. So a lot of theme parks have stopped selling a lot of really good snow globes. But back in the day, snow globes were huge. That was a really good thing you could bring home, lay on your table, and be like, "Ooh, I went to that place." Anyway, back to the topic at hand. And finally, the last category is plush. Now, I have a lot of plush too. I was a stuffed animal kid. I loved my stuffies. When I was a kid, I had a little stuffed dog and a little stuffed sheep. The stuffed dog was from Cato, if you remember the store Cato. The little stuffed sheep was from Old Navy, I think. I think it was from Old Navy. And then I had a stuffed animal that my grandfather gave me. That was a little clown dog. He was this cute little beagle like animal with a clown costume on. He wasn't meant to be scary. He was like a happy beagle. It's a puppy with a costume on. It was cute. But I also have a lot of theme park plushies as well. I had a few Mickey Mouse plushes. I had the whole Fab Five, and Mickey in a couple different costumes. I also had Oswald as a plush. I have I have all of these still. They still exist in my life. I just have them boxed away somewhere. And then now I have a few of the SeaWorld characters as plushes. I have Captain Cacao from Epic Universe as a plush. Woo! He was popular. I have the Merry Menagerie bear puppets plushes. He is in my collection now. I also have like the Lil Boo plush from Halloween Horror Nights. He was very famous last year, and then they brought him back this year, and then he's just kind of not as famous as he once was. I think they've overdone it at this point. I also have a lot of the little miniature plushes, like the little shoulder plush figures from over the years at different theme parks. I have a couple from Universal, a couple from Disney. Another one I have from Knott's Berry Farm was actually a prize plush, and it's an animal called a catawampus, which has its own history. I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit about the catawampus. It's a little plush I got from Knott's Berry Farm, but it's famous. So the plush itself isn't famous, but it's based on a famous kind of creature thing that was built by Walter Knott. It has no official birthday, but it was built around the 1930s, and it was a catawampus. It was a creature that was built out of like a stump, some branches, and a weird thing. I don't know. It's made of a branch, a scrub brush, and a set of ram horns. But they they made a plush for it that was like a plush character you could buy and go, well, not buy, you had to win it as a prize at one of the games in Knott's Berry Farm, and I was able to get one. And it's an interesting little figurine. It's like a really fluffy looking thing. It looks like a wooden marshmallow with horns. I don't really know, but it's a fun plush. But there's lots of great plush out there, and I have quite a few of them. I have Snorri from Europa-Park's Rulantica and the Europa-Park attraction. So I have a lot of great plushes from around theme parks around the world, and I love my plushies. So I think that's most of my collections, mostly all theme park souvenirs. I have a lot of things that aren't theme park souvenirs, but most of my stuff is theme park souvenirs. It's all based in theme parks. So, well, thanks for letting me rattle on about souvenirs. I hope you can, understand a lot of this, and that you can enjoy this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope that you will visit us on the next episode. I have a little bit of sneak peek about that in a moment, but I hope you enjoyed this kind of coverage on a chit chat episode, something a little bit different, a little less history based, a little less specific theme park based, a little more just a general theme park overview history souvenir page. So we're talking just about souvenirs today and about our favorite, my favorite stuff, the things that I have. So thanks for listening to this week's episode. I invite you to join us next week on a very special episode. I've actually been working on this one a little while, since last week, actually. I was going to premiere it this week, but then I decided to put it off one more week so that I could get this one out, because I really was fascinated with this one, but also so that I could work a little bit longer on it and get it more nailed down, and that is Europa-Park. So next week we're going to be discovering the history and stories behind Europa-Park. And if you've never heard of Europa-Park before, it's located in Rust, Germany. I think it's called Rust. It's Rust or Roost, Germany. And this beautiful place is actually the theme park designed by Mack Rides, by the Mack family. So yeah, it's a really fun park. I've been there twice and been to their Water World park, Rulantica, twice as well, on 2 different visits. So I've been to Europa-Park probably 4 times now, over the course of 2 visits in town, and Rulantica have been to 3 times, I believe, on 2 different visits in town. So I can't wait to talk and tell you more about this truly amazing park in Germany. And as we kind of step out of America to talk a little bit about some of those parks outside of our typical sphere of theme parks. So I can't wait to talk about that in the next episode. But for now, I will end this episode with our little credit section. But thanks for listening to Zach Back's Carousel of Theme Parks podcast. And here's up next is our credits for this episode and some of the research sources that I found when it comes to theme park merchandise. Thanks again, and we'll see you real soon. On this episode of the Carousel of Theme Parks podcast, I used sources that varied from around the internet. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of books on theme park merchandising, but I hope to purchase some in the coming years and the coming months, days, who knows. But for now, this week I used some sources from Merriam-Webster's website, the Worth Point Dictionary on Worth Point's website, from Yesterday's America, a site based on theme parks, and merchandise at Mickey's Warehouse. It's a kind of a small website there. We also had a few stories from Medium, which was a short history of Disney merchandising by Renee Budgeon from The Wonderful World of Disney, and the history of Knott's Berry Farm, which we will get more into, but it's actually on the Knott's Berry Farm website, as well as an article from the Los Angeles Times called Theme Parks Expect New Rides to Send Merchandise Sales Soaring. So if you'd like to see any of these sources and actually read some of the articles that are connected to them, then I invite you to visit the source page, or not source page, but the show notes on this episode to find all of the links to these specific sources. Thanks again for listening to Zach Back's Carousel of Theme Parks podcast, and I hope that you'll join me on next week's episode as we discussed Europa-Park in Germany.